North Korea could be another issue. The former Navy SEAL, Virginia Republican Senator Scott Taylor. Congressman, good to have you. We do get a sense from all parties that they're nervous about what North Korea is doing. But if you think about it, Congressman, even back to your Navy SEAL days, we've had this problem, and long before, with the North Koreans continuing to sort of spit in the West and those that wanted to slow down from this, and they keep doing it. So what now?
No question. Well, Neil, it's great to be with you as always. Yes, you know, you've seen this over the past couple of decades where you've seen potentially weak action, some inaction, of course, as North Korea has steadily marched towards having an ICBM that could potentially have a nuclear weapon and be able to hit America, which is something, in my opinion, that is unacceptable for any president, Democrat or Republican, for them to have it. Look, I think that President Trump introduced the potential of force there when he had, you know, ships steaming there as well, too, which obviously helps diplomatically in the conditions on the ground there, but also brought China to the table. China hasn't been as cooperative as we'd like them to, neither has Russia, but let's be honest, the missiles are shooting to the east and not to the west, so North Korea and China don't necessarily have an incentive. But I think there are a couple things that you can do, sanctions-wise, potentially saying any bank that does business with North Korea will be out of the United States financial system. Russia, one of the things the president mentioned today in Poland when he was speaking about LNG and potentially contracts there to make sure that in Europe, Eastern Europe, and potentially Western Europe, don't have to rely only on one source. You can use energy certainly as a foreign policy tool, and I hope that they do that.
You know, though, it's interesting as we see that, you know, Angela Merkel greet the president. There's a sense that, to your point, all right, then go after the ones who finance North Korea help. And the president did target two largely Chinese financial institutions. We call them banks, but they're not quite banks, but I'll just call them financial institutions. And sure. The idea being that they indirectly, in the case of one, directly fund North Korean investments. And the Chinese had already, they claim, pulled the rug out from under that. The administration claims otherwise. But isn't the real trick going to get not so much sanctions to increase on North Korea, but to increase on China?
I think you have to do. Listen, I think you're right. You have to do things that make China and potentially Russia engage. And as I said, the missiles are shooting to the east and not to the west. So that's something that they geopolitically they may be okay with, unless it looks like there's going to be conflict, unless it looks like the Korean Peninsula is going to be destabilized, which it's increasingly looking like that. And that's not
well,
that's not in the best interest of the world.
I'm sorry, sir, but don't they worry about accidents? I mean, it's not as if the North Koreans have proven themselves to be a master of this aiming technology. They launch a lot of stuff, but a lot of it goes widely off course. That something could go very, very bad here, and could land on someone's land, even China's. So they must be concerned about how erratic and how wacky this is getting, and how dangerous it is getting with the possibility of an accident, right?
It's very dangerous. I believe personally that there is a line into North Korea from China that, you know, we may not know about, or something like a back channel, if you will. But I think, again, those missiles are shooting to the east, not to the west. The GDP of North Korea is very low compared to how much money they're spending on their huge army and their military technology. Somebody's funding that, of course. I think they have to worry about the quite frankly, the escalation and the potential danger that could really destabilize the Korean Peninsula, and quite frankly around Japan and South Korea and our allies. I know they're worried about it. And as I said before, to me it's unacceptable for them to have the ability to put a nuclear-tipped missile. Can you imagine, Neil, if they're shooting into the sea off of California as they do off the coast of Japan?
Absolutely.
Absolutely unacceptable for any president, for America to allow that to happen. So I think we're getting into dangerous territory here, and it is important that the president, when he speaks to our allies, the Japanese and South Koreans, and then of course the president of China, that he's very, very clear on not necessarily a red line. I get that he doesn't want to do that, and that's fine, but there has to be a very clear. If I don't want to use the word red line, but there's got to be a clear indication of what you will not cross, or what the Koreans won't cross, and therefore that the Chinese need to help out. Then they need to be a part of this, because it will be very impactful in a very bad way for the Chinese as well too.
Well, Kim Jong-un has learned from his father and his grandfather that The West can, frump and complain and bark orders and draw lines.
And that's the problem.
And that's the problem, right? Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
All right. Thank you very much. Good catching up with you.
Thank you, Neil.